Thanks so much, Nick.
7:22, good morning, everybody. And Akilah Newton, she couldn't find a children's book about Canadian Black history, so you know what? She began writing them.
Her latest book is called Movers, Shakers, History Makers, the Canadian Black History Book of Rhymes. And the book takes a look at some prominent figures in Black history across the country. She joins us this morning from Montreal. Bonjour, how are you, Akilah?
Hi, how are you? Good morning.
We're well, thanks. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about this right away. Why'd you choose to do this book with the rhymes aspect of it?
Well, because I actually in 2018 came out with an activity book called Big Dreamers, the Canadian activity book for kids. There were coloring pages, activities, and it was really well received and schools were using it in the curriculum. But when I was approaching libraries, they were saying, we love the content, but we actually can't carry activity books because kids write in them. So I didn't even think about that at the time when I released my first book. So basically I was like, oh, well, that's a problem. Well, I have a solution. I'm going to write a storybook then. So then you have no excuse to not carry it in your library. So basically I used the 26 people, the alphabet of people from volume 1, and created movers, shakers, history makers. And it's really fun rhyming pages and verses and 26 inspirational people that have helped change a Canadian landscape. So I'm really excited that it's finally out to the public.
Good for you, because you're a mover shaker and you're making it happen. You're making history happen in schools. So much so, you've been helping with running workshops in schools for over 10 years to educate kids on Canadian Black history. So what's that reception been like?
So that's been incredible. I'm the founder and executive director of an organization in Montreal called Overture with the Arts. And a lot of what we do is arts workshops in school and after school and arts for social change. And my twin brother and I have been going into schools. My brother's the host, Akilah Newton. And we educate specifically about Canadian Black history, because oftentimes when educators are actually teaching kids about Black history, they focus on the heavy hitters in America, which is great. It's important to learn about the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King Jr., but we have phenomenal people here in Canada, and these stories need to be shared. So teachers are really happy now that they have these resources that they could use. And
I think, a lot of the teachers and adults themselves are going to be learning from this as well, because we did not have this, as you mentioned, in our curriculum growing up. So this is incredible. And people like Rufus Rockhead, who from your book I'm learning about. Tell us a little bit about his history.
Yeah, so Rufus Rockhead is actually one of my favorite stories. He's in Big Dreamers Volume 2. So he was the first Black club owner in Montreal. He started his life in his, mid to late 20s as a train porter. And train porters are essentially people that would help white travelers who were traveling overnight. They would help with bring them food, bring them their baggage and whatnot. So he's a train porter, didn't like that job. His dream was to open a club. So he opened a club in Montreal, first Black-owned club that brought in legendary artists from the States, including Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Cap Calloway, and he was just so ahead of his time. His club was so popular for decades in Montreal, and he's done so much for Black history in Montreal, and a lot of people don't know his story.
Yeah.
Now we do, thanks to you. Speaking of, we want to hear one of your rhymes. You're kind enough to do it this morning for us. This one is about the one and only Viola Desmond.
Yes, absolutely. Viola Desmond was a fearless entrepreneur and activist with many incredible accomplishments, too many to list. She went to theater and sat in the whites-only section, but she was forced to leave and jailed. Her rights had no protection. This was the biggest case of racism in Canada that ever made it to court. People were upset that she was treated so unfairly with such little support. In 2010, the government of Nova Scotia publicly apologized for their actions. She's now featured on a $10 bill. She was met with loving reactions.
That's so great. Akilah Newton, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing the stories and the rhymes. Everyone check out more at bigdreamers.ca. Thanks again.
Thank you guys so much. Happy Black History Month.
Right back at you. Thank you.
Now over to Mel with the headlines.